Honestly, I was a little shocked to see a new Warbond reveal drop earlier today, but drop it did. And there's a lot here to unpack, with the Helldivers community already noticing some of the possible pitfalls and asking if it's S tier or a hard pass. I've, of course, got my own thoughts to jam in here as well, so stick around as I break it all down for you. If you want to help support the channel, please consider hitting subscribe. If you're on mobile, please swipe right to hype the video. And let's dive into all the latest with Helldivers. Okay, with today's Entrenched Division Warbond, oh god, I almost said Ghost Division there. If you know, you know. Anyways, this is Helldivers' next premium warbond that will be dropping next week on March 17th, and of course, it being a premium warbond, it's going to set you back the standard 1,000 super creds, and this is very clearly based around the theme of World War I. From the armor sets to the weaponry, it definitely oozes the Great War. Now, the TLDR with Entrenched Division is that you should expect to receive 2 new armor sets, 1 primary weapon, 2 secondary weapons, 2 stratagems, 4 new vehicle patterns, 1 throwable grenade, 2 player banners, 2 capes, a new emote, and the 𝗛𝗲𝗹𝗶𝘀𝗲𝗄 player title. Now, in terms of the drip factor, this one certainly, like I said earlier, leans heavy into those World War I themes, which I love, and I've also got a lot of thoughts and questions along the way concerning this gear, so with that in mind, let's just go ahead and dive on in. We always seem to kick off these warbond breakdowns with the weapons, so I thought instead tonight we would turn this thing on its head and kick it off with the AGM-17 Giga grenade. You can see the divers in the trailer are tossing this thing out of a trench towards an automaton annihilator tank where it absolutely deflates this thing once the nades go off. And of all the gear in this new warbond, I probably have the least amount of questions or concerns with this grenade. The Giga looks like a German Panzerwurf mine, but almost like it is built out of a bunch of pineapple nades all lashed to a stick. The primary weapon is the SMG FLAM 34 Stoker, which looks to be every bit of a Defender SMG with a crisper sidearm strapped into the underbarrel placement. Now, if the FLAM 34 shares the same stats as the Defender, this is where this weapon gets a bit dicey, because the Defender has a ballistics damage of 110, 45 round capacity, and a really low fire rate for an SMG of just 520 RPM, along with light armor pen. If the underbarrel is basically the same as a crisper, which tends to be overlooked for better, more utility-driven secondaries, it then creates a weapon that is, at least to me, concerning. The Defender is one of the least picked primary weapons in the game, hovering between less than 1% up to a maximum pick rate of just 1.5%, so it's pretty much universally avoided by the player base. The Crisper is very much the same, seeing its highest usage rate on the Illuminate with a 1.4% pick rate. So we've got one avoided weapon strapped to another avoided weapon, and we get the end result of a weapon that is designed to do what exactly? There's also the question of fire and status effects, which we'll touch on here a little later in the video, but for now, let's hop over to the P69 Veto sidearm. We don't get to see much of the Veto during the trailer, at least not a lot of footage that features this weapon specifically, but I think for some out there, it definitely resembles a Mauser with some extra modifications. There is the interesting reload mechanic that is shown in slow-mo as the diver reloads it using a stripper clip, but honestly, that's about it. Based on the number of rounds being loaded into the weapon, the Veto could go one of 2 ways. It could be modeled after some of the lighter round variants, meaning it would end up being light armor pen, or it can have less overall rounds and be medium or heavy armor pen. I honestly don't know, but I'm personally hoping that it's some new variant of a sidearm that could end up as AP4 to possibly give the Senator some much needed competition. Next, let's check out the armor sets, which include the CPG-48 Sapper medium armor and the CPH-26 Commandant lightweight armor. Now, what makes these armors very unique from what we've seen before from previous warbonds is that based on the version you equip, there are variations of the armor passive. For instance, with the medium armor, it comes with the Grenadier variant of the concussive padding armor passive, meaning you're going to be getting explosive damage resistance plus extra throwables. So it combines a bit of fortified with a sliver of engineering kit. For the lightweight variant though, you'll get the hazmat version of concussive padding, which gives you resistance to explosives, gas damage, along with reduced sidearm recoil. If this one stays the same until launch, it's a mix of advanced filtration, fortified, and gunslinger all kind of mixed into one. And I'd expect a Superstore variant as well, which we don't yet know anything about. But as experienced Helldivers, we know and we've seen these passives change so many times after being announced. So what we saw today in the trailer and explained in the PlayStation blog, by the way, link to it can be found in the video description, all of this could be subject to change. But as someone that likes taking on the automatons, I personally think a medium armor set with a mix of fortified and more throwable sounds like something I would definitely be interested in trying out. It really all depends on what the percentages of resistances these new armor sets come standard with. Not much is known about the AGM-17 gas mortar sentry other than it's a mortar and it fires gas rounds down on top of enemy targets. But from the trailer, it shows one round landing and clouding over a group of devastators, and if we get some more sort of confirmation on cloud radius or any other information from Arrowhead, expect me to include it in a follow-up video. Now, outside of this stratagem dropping down gas, we really don't know much else about it. However, the mortar and its gas rounds will fall under the in-game issues of status effects and how they apply to groups of targets along with the host client issues. Gas overall is an effective crowd control factor that can be used to disorient and confuse targets, causing them to blindly attack anything in their general vicinity. But ever since changes were made in a previous patch, and honestly, I forgot the exact number of that patch, status effects can be hit or miss if they are applied to targets that are visually caught up in their area of effect. I don't normally give the Warbond emote its own breakdown in one of my videos, but the diplomatic handshake emote is special, and it carries with it historic weight, as it's directly based off of the Christmas Truce of 1914, which you can see here immortalized in the statue. By the way, I'll include a link to a wiki page down in the video description and pinned comments so you can kind of give it a read for yourself. But the TLDR is that the week leading up to Christmas 1914, German, French, and British soldiers crossed trenches and even no man's land to kind of mingle, exchange food, and even play a match of football, which you see here in the statue. So the emote is a cool reference to, once again, events from World War I. Only a couple more items to quickly run through, including our first ever entrenchment tool, aka a shovel, but whereas the normal shovel, we find planetside, will take the place of your support slot, the CQC-73 can be equipped in place of a secondary weapon, freeing you up to carry something like, say, a quasar cannon or an AMR. If the CQC-73 stays the same as what we currently have in game already, the CQC-72, it should be AP3, so that's medium armor pen, along with 110 base damage. How much use it will get in a diver's build as a melee item is probably not going to be all that much, just being honest, but as we've seen with the standard 72 version, players can use it to dig and build their own trenches. For me, I tend to move around the map at a frenetic pace, so stopping to dig a trench and not moving to engage the enemy is definitely not in my diver DNA, know what I'm saying? Plus, from what we've seen in games, stopping and holding ground tends to make you a quick snack for mobs and incoming explosives, so it might be cool to try it out a few times just for the thrill of holding the line, but after that, I honestly don't know how much use the shovel secondary will get. There's one more item left in Entrenched Division I want to take a good look at, and that's the 𝗛𝗆𝗹𝗹𝗱𝗃 Creamtor backpack-fed flamethrower. Now visually, the Creamtor looks intense, with its dual tanks, fuel gauge on the back, and on the nozzle system itself. I mean, it really looks the part. But as you watch the trailer, fire in general doesn't look to be all that impressive, at least in terms of damage output, as there's a clip where the diver is hammering down with the Creamtor versus a group of berserkers, and the bots just kind of keep moseying on through the flames, nearly reaching the diver. Without putting too much effort or time into breaking down the clip frame by frame, berserkers are generally unarmored, and yet the Creamtor is barely putting a dent into them. We also did a very quick 30-second test tonight before I recorded this video, and I've got to tell you, visuals versus actual damage hitboxes with fire weapons are not what they seem. At about 20 meters, both the Crisper and Torture look like they are hitting this diver directly, yet I can tell you, he's taking no damage. For a standard flamethrower, that range is then extended to right around 23-ish meters, where the ignition zone becomes very spotty. Which leads up to, of course, this trailer where the Creamtor is visually firing down the street, and at least from our testing, those visuals look to be on par with the flamethrower, meaning that this massive dual tank backpack laden fire breather doesn't look to be doing anything special when compared to what we've already got in the standard flamethrower. Also, and finally here, I think it was back when the Escalation of Freedom update dropped, I may be mistaken though, but fire, which used to travel through targets and blanket mobs, was then switched to hit the target leading the pack and not travel through them any longer, meaning you might visually see flames belching 20 to 30 meters away from you in your new Creamtor, but it's only really impacting the closest target. And on a side note, I noticed this while recording the flamethrower footage from the ship's terminal, but if you watch it closely, the second clip here shows the diver firing the flamethrower and the flames hit the lead scavenger, but they don't do anything to the warriors about a meter or so behind it, which may have been the original clip, or that clip may have been changed. I honestly don't remember, but that's something you have to take into account. It's also time for Arrowhead to do something more with fire, right? Like, I don't know, a slow effect, say 25 to 35%, because targets are able to just walk or sprint through fire with no stagger, no slow, no stun, and then they end up striking us divers, catching us on fire. In fact, that would be a solid suggestion for the Creamtor, to add the slow or stun effect to its direct fire damage, or maybe just add a bunch more range, because outside of that, it looks like a more restrictive flamethrower and not much else. Anyways, before I call it on this one, I'd like to say that these are just my initial thoughts and impressions based on the trailer, and I will of course need to test out these items next week when Entrenched Division drops. You know, things could be different then, as we have seen Arrowhead make changes with Warbonds in the past, from the time they reveal them to the time they go live. But here's where you get to drop your thoughts and feedback down in the comment section below. Overall, how does Entrenched Division look to you? Is it something you're going to be picking up regardless, or are you going to wait to see the test results before dropping those hard-earned super credits? If you haven't done so already, please hit subscribe and ring the notifications bell to receive my future upload alerts. If you're on mobile, please swipe right to hype this video. A massive and heartfelt thanks goes out to all my hardcore channel supporters. And until the next one, this is 𝗛𝗲𝗹𝗶𝘀𝗲𝗍, signing off.